Hello and welcome back to the Only iPhones channel, where all we discuss is iPhones on this channel. And today I'm going to do a deep dive into how to use all of the features with the new iPhone 13 Pro Max camera. You might not know some of these, especially if you're coming from an older device. There are some new features that are brand new to the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and I have timestamps right below in the description in case you want to skip ahead and check out different parts of the video. And let's get into it. The first thing you might not know about the iPhone 13 Pro Max is you can actually open the camera app directly from the lock screen on the phone, which all you have to do is press this button right down here in the lower right hand corner, and boom, you have the camera app open on your phone. Now the next thing that's really important on the iPhone 13 Pro Max is knowing how to control your lenses. So by default, when you open up the camera app, you're always going to land on the photo section here, and you're going to have it on the one-time zoom. And then you have two different choices here. As you can see, you got 0.5 and 3, and these control the lenses on the back of your phone right here. So it will, depending on which one of these you press, you'll actually be switching lenses. So if you want to zoom in like this, you can actually do a 3 times optical zoom, so you're actually using a different lens for this. And then the 0.5 is for the wide angle, so that way you can actually get everything into the shot that you're looking to get in there. And this is how you switch the lenses. Now when you're on the number 1 setting, you can also do some form of in-between as well. Like this, you're doing digital zoom until you get to the 3, and then you can go as far as 15. So you can see, look, I'm zoomed right in onto that grill. Of course, the video quality or the picture quality is not going to be so great at that type of a zoom, but that's how far it goes in. And then you can also do the opposite and zoom on out, but the 0.5 is still the limit on how far you can go out, but you can still do some variation in between 0.5 and 1 if you don't want to be zoomed all the way out. Now this next one is super important and is especially new to the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and that is the macro mode. So as you can see, the closer I get to this table, you can still see all of the details inside of the picture, which is something that a lot of the older iPhones struggled with. And then as soon as I back out, it will automatically switch away from the macro mode. And you kind of see in the lower left-hand corner, whenever that flower pops up like that, that's the phone telling you that you have then switched to the macro mode. And then if you back far enough away, you can see that you are no longer in the macro mode. And later on in the video, I'll show you how to actually get this so you can actually manually control. You can see if you don't have the macro mode on, when you're really close to something, the shot is blurry. And then when you turn it on, it's like magic. Boom, you can shoot something extremely close up with a lot of detail. Now this is another cool new feature of the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and it has something called the text reader. So you see when you get close to something like this, you can actually see the yellow lines around the text here, okay? And then if you click this button here in the lower right, it will actually take a little picture for you, and then you can copy and paste it as you like. So I could take this, for example, and copy it and paste it into a text message if I wanted to, as an example. So if I go here and look at that, you got a text message of the text that was right there, and all from a picture. You didn't have to type any of this out. I think this is an extremely cool new feature and will come in very handy here in the future. Now another brand new excellent feature they have added to the iPhone 13 Pro Max is photographic styles, and how you can access this if you've already set up your phone and you didn't set this up yet is you can go up here and click on that 3 little layer icon, and you can see I have mine on rich contrast, but they have other default settings as well, like standard, rich contrast, vibrant, warm, and cool. And then you can also adjust the details of these settings here. As you can see, you can make it a little bit more cool, or keep it the same, or a little bit warmer, however you want to do it. So you can have some sort of variation of this at your preference, which is super cool because every time you open the camera app, it will default to the style that you have chosen, which I keep mine on rich contrast, and every single photo that you shoot will then be shot in this filter and photographic style that you have chosen as the default. Now this next one hasn't changed much over time, but it's still something worth noting in this tutorial. And if you want to turn your flash settings on and off and keep it manual or auto, you're always going to use this little lightning icon in the upper left, and you see it went on or off. But if you want a little more control, you click on that button right there in the middle, and then if you go down here and hit the lightning button there, it will give you a few more options at your disposal. You got flash on auto here, or you can always have it on or always off, whatever you prefer. I tend to leave mine off, and I just turn it on rare occasions when I need it. But the night mode on this phone is absolutely incredible. Check out the video I did on the night mode here, and you rarely ever even need the flash anymore on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And speaking of night mode photography, this is how you're going to have to use it. Now, you can't use the night mode unless it's actually nighttime, okay? The phone is actually smart enough to realize when it's nighttime or not, and you'll know when the night mode is activated when you see this yellow icon in the upper left of the camera. You won't see that if it's light outside, so this only works when you take a night mode shot. And basically what a night mode shot is when I take the picture here, it's totally dark outside, but it does look pretty bright in the picture. It takes a second there, but then once it's done, see the result? It's like a night picture that looks like daytime, basically. It's a very cool feature of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Next is the live photo option, which you can see I also have turned off, but this is how you can turn it on. And if you want a little more control, you're always going to hit that middle button for more options, and you can see you got another live button right there. So you got live auto, live on, and live off. I keep mine off by default because I don't really care for how the live photos look whenever they kind of move around like that. And also, if you send the photo to somebody that doesn't have an iPhone, they won't be able to see it like a live photo anyhow. So I think the feature is mostly useless. I'm not really sure why Apple has this. I'm not a big fan of it, but if you like it, that's how you can turn it on and off. So now I'm going to show you how to lock and manually set exposure, and this is something you might not know, especially if you are new to iPhone. So let's use this grill right in front of us, for example. So we'll use the 3x zoom, okay? And then if I hold down on the screen, you see how it says AE autofocus lock like that? So that means it's going to be locked onto this object. So if I move somewhere else, it's going to be locked over in that same spot where you see that yellow block. So let's use this grill as an example. And then if you want to change the exposure on the shot, this is what you need to do. You go back, put your thumb on there, and then you can go down like this, and you see how it lowers the exposure of the shot. Or you can raise it above, say it's kind of dark outside. This is when you would want to go up, and you see now it's overexposed, and that's how you would manually set the exposure, and it's not going to change until you retap the screen somewhere else like this. Then it kind of resets it and goes back to normal of the standard setting of how it was before. You can also change the exposure with this middle button right here. If you click there and then go to this little icon here, you can manually change the exposure like this as well. Next up is portrait mode, which definitely is one of the coolest features of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And even though it's not a new feature this year, it still remains one of the best features of these Apple phones. And basically what you can see what it is it kind of makes it so you can take a picture with a blurry background, kind of like the macro mode, but a little bit different. So you see, if I went to go take a picture of this, the background is all blurred out, whereas all you can see in the middle there is that focus of the edge of this bench, and everything else is blurry. So it gives you that bokeh effect, or the blurry background effect, whenever you want to go ahead and take a picture. And then of course you can also change the lighting of these as well, which will change the look and feel of the picture. And another thing to note is on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, it also has a different change of lens. You got the 1 zoom there, and then you can also use the 3, and you can see it's extremely close now. So depending on what you're taking a picture of, you're going to want to maybe adjust that feature right there. Next up is panoramic, which is also not a new feature, but in case you don't know how to use it, you go ahead and press the panel button, and then you slowly move to the right and follow along that yellow line as closely as you can for as long as you can. Now I can't do it all within the frame of this shot because I just don't have the grip to do that, but you get the idea. And once you're done, you press the stop button and it will stitch together your panoramic shot like such. So you can see we got a picture, a little bit of everything out here, the whole backyard with the grills. And if I would have kept going to the right like that, you would be able to even scroll even farther and see everything that's over this way as well. So these panoramic shots can be pretty cool. Now this is a very useful feature just in case you use your phone by yourself a lot, and I use this to take my thumbnail pictures all the time, and that is the timer feature. So once again, you press that middle button, and then when you see over here this little kind of stopwatch icon, if you click that, you got two timer options. You got one for 3 seconds, one for 10 seconds. I typically find 10 seconds is the best, and that gives you a little time to set the camera down somewhere. Usually on a tripod is best so you don't break your phone. 3 seconds doesn't seem to be enough time usually. So if I do this, let me just show you how this works. If I press 10 seconds, right, and I go to take a picture, it's going to start a timer. You see that timer down there in the lower right hand corner? And if you're taking a picture of yourself, you're going to see like this, the flashing, and then it starts flashing fast. You hear that? That's how you know it took the picture. So that's how the timer works. Now this next feature is pretty self-explanatory, and that is how to flip your camera to the selfie camera. All you have to do is press this flip, what's up? And as you can see, I'm filming this on my iPhone 10, still an excellent phone, guys. So you press that button, and on this phone, you also have this feature which they kind of added, I think, when the 12 Pro Max came out. So if you press this little icon here, it will actually do like a little bit of a wide angle shot, which is pretty awesome. It's like having pretty much two cameras in one with the selfie camera here. It comes standard like this, but if you're trying to fit in like a few more people, say you're taking a group selfie, you kind of back out like this, and boom, you got a nice selfie shot. Now let's move on to the video camera, and a lot of the same tips I just showed you are going to apply to the video camera, but one sneaky one here is if you want to access that middle menu up here, as you can see, all there is up there is a timestamp right now. So in order to access that, you actually got to flip the phone horizontal, and then you can access that menu here. And this is where there's a little hidden feature a lot of people don't know about. If you're shooting a video at nighttime, this is how you can actually turn the flash permanently on your phone, so when you're shooting in the dark, you can get some more light. So now you can see, if I go to shoot, we got the light on, and it stays on as you're shooting. So this is really helpful if you're trying to film something in the dark, guys. So another thing that also applies to the video camera as well is that macro photography. If I get close to something like the hole in this table, that icon will come up, and then if I back away, it will go off. Okay, so that's pretty cool if you want to take a nice close-up video, high resolution of something really close up. The iPhone 13 Pro Max can pull that off beautifully. Now the next thing you're going to want to know with the video camera is how you can change your frame rate and resolution, and that is done right up here. You don't have to go into the settings. You just tap on 30, 60, and 24. Those are your options. 24 is kind of for shooting a more cinematic, slower style video. 30 is pretty standard. This is what I use to shoot all of these videos, including this one you're watching. And 4K 60 is great for capturing anything that's moving fast with a lot of motion. Say you want to move the camera around quick like this, 4K 60 is great for that. It will keep the video looking smooth. And if you want to drop the resolution down, you can hit the 4K and it will go down to HD as well. I don't know why you'd want to do that because 4K looks excellent and it's becoming more and more the standard, and this will drop your resolution down to 1080p. Probably the only reason you'd want to do this is if you have really slow internet speed and you want to have a lower file to upload to YouTube or something like that, or you just don't have a lot of space left on your phone. But I would leave it on 4K. It just looks so much nicer. Everything is so much more crisp and clear. Now another little camera tip I have for you is, say you want to take a horizontal photo like this, but sometimes depending on how you're holding your phone can actually get confused, and say you take a horizontal photo like this, but then when you take it and you go to look at it in your Photos app, it's actually in horizontal. And the reason for that is because you have to pay attention to the numbers here. So you see how the numbers are upright. If they're not upright when you're taking the photo, like say you're taking it like this, for example, and watch how it goes. You see how the numbers just flipped on their own like that? Then if I take the photo, it will look like this. But if the numbers were still in the upright position and I took it like this, then the photo will still show up in vertical, which isn't a big deal. You can flip it later in the editing part of your Photos app, but just if you want everything to work out perfect the first time, you want to make sure that the number is facing the direction that you're trying to take the photo in, if that makes sense. Next, we got cinematic mode, which is definitely a new feature, and I'm trying to do all this with only two hands here, guys. And basically what this is it's a feature that shoots everything in Dolby Vision HDR. And if you can see this, it's kind of like portrait mode, where as you can see, the background is very blurry and this tree in front of me is what's in focus, okay? And this is basically the coolest thing about it. Now I will tell you, it does look great when you shoot something in cinematic mode on your iPhone, but if you try editing it or something like that in, say, Final Cut Pro or iMovie, it's very difficult to work with the footage because it's in HDR. I'm not going to get into a bunch of details on that, but just know if you do shoot anything in cinematic mode, it's going to look the best on your actual iPhone unless you really know how to work with HDR footage in an editor. And also, you do have the option to change the lens here, so that zooms it in even further, and you can see just how blurred out the background is there. So the cinematic mode I think is very cool, but until HDR becomes more standardized on all types of devices, then I think it's not really the best option for shooting most videos unless you just watch all of your videos on your phone or your iPad, and if you're happy with the results from that, then knock yourself out and use cinematic mode. Next up is slow motion, and the best way I think for me to demonstrate this is to just press the button and then I'll like wave my hand in front of the camera or something so you can see exactly what it does. And I just unrecorded. So if I hit the button, right, and then I go like this, and then you can see it slows down that footage. You see how slow my hand is moving? Slow motion. Pretty self-explanatory, pretty cool if you want to capture like your dog catching a ball in the air, something like that. That will look really neat in slow motion. Time lapse is also kind of the same thing. It's very self-explanatory. This is when you'd want to just like set your phone on a tripod and you can make hours go by in seconds, guys. I've done this with some footage over the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. I'll put up a clip here so you can see how cool these time lapses can actually show up, because just me sitting here talking about it and doing this quick shot for a few seconds is not going to do it justice. But if you actually take the time and do a right time-lapse shot, it can turn out very beautiful. Like, look how it is. Like, you see how fast everything is there? This kind of just the trees blowing in the wind. It's really short, right? But if you let the phone sit there for an hour or two filming something really cool like the sunset, then this can turn out to be an awesome type of shot, and it's one of my favorite features to use on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now for this part of the video, I want to take you guys over to the Settings app, and we're going to go to the camera section to just go over a couple of things on how to set some things up. So the first thing is formats here, okay? I have mine on high efficiency. I recommend you keep yours on the same because this will save some space on your iPhone. If you hit most compatible, it will do a lot of different pictures and videos in a different file format that will take up more space, but those file formats are more compatible with other types of computers and phones. So, but if you use mostly Apple products, I wouldn't worry about it and I'd keep it on high efficiency. And then as you can see, the two settings that are underneath here are two brand new ones to the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and that is Apple RAW and Apple ProRes. And as you can see, I have both of these off, and the very simple reason for that is one, these file formats take up a ton of space, and two, it's pretty much overkill for most people, including me. Even though I make these YouTube videos for a living, you know, it's not really worth it for me to shoot in Apple ProRes or take my pictures in Pro Raw. I'm not huge into editing the color grading of all of the photos and the videos down to the wire like some people are. This is more for real professionals that are looking to use their phones as like a real camera. Now this is also where you're going to set your standard camera settings on how you want things to look when you first open the camera app. So what I mean is, let's go back to the camera real quick. So when I go to photo, I like my photos to be set standard here on the 1x zoom. When I go to video, I like my standard to be at 4K 30, and this is where you're going to change that right here in the settings. Say you don't want to record in 4K 30, you can drop your resolution all the way down to 720p. Why you'd want to do that, I don't know. But say you like doing the max at 4K 60 and that's your standard, you can put that on there, and then if I go back to the camera app, it will automatically be on 4K 60, as you can see in the upper right hand corner. But I keep mine on 4K 30. This is the good enough standard for me, and that's what I usually have it on. And the same goes for recording in slow motion. You got two options. You got 240 FPS and 120. The 240 FPS will allow you to have smoother slow motion, and the 120 FPS will be a little bit less smooth. Depending on how fast moving the object is, you might want to adjust this. And kind of along the same lines of what we were just talking about, this preserve settings right here is how you, if you want to keep different parts of your camera the same. Like say every time you open your camera you wanted to go to the video app instead of the standard camera, this is where you would hit that right there on camera mode. Same thing with different aspect ratios for your pictures, macro control if you want that to be on automatically, a certain exposure that you have set for all of your photos, if you always want it to be night mode or not, things like that. And you can see the ones that I have set always are portrait zoom, because I like mine to be on the 1x setting, because the standard on the iPhone 13 Pro Max is the 3x setting, which I find to be just too zoomed in most cases, and I always like to keep the live photos off, and that's where this is set here as well. Now just like I promised, I want to show you guys how you can get this icon with the macro mode. So you see there's no macro mode icon, but then whenever I move close to something it shows up, that little flower there, right? So I promised I'd show you guys how to get that, and this is how it's done. You need to go to the camera settings, and if you want that option to control it, you need to have this option here selected, macro control, and then you'll have that button. And it's turned off by default, so if you want it, make sure you go into your camera settings here all the way at the bottom and click that macro control, and then you can manually adjust it. Otherwise the phone will try to just sense when you're trying to take a macro shot and turn it on and off by itself. Now I'm not going to dive into every single one of these settings here because we've already covered so much in this video, and if you ever want to adjust something on your camera that's not in the camera app, then it's always going to be here. You're going to click on your settings app, and then you're going to scroll down to where it says camera. This is how you can access this menu to basically fine-tune your iPhone 13 Pro Max camera to your liking. So this way all of your settings are always set the way you want it. If you guys enjoyed this video, then check out my iPhone 13 Pro Max video on the screen, and I'll see you guys over there.